hours or something like that.
I'm glad that you appreciate it.
I'm going to move away from that alone here. Although I've done it once and a half.
I'm going to need to get nice privacy.
Yep, that's cute. Very cute.
I'm going to go sit over there in a minute.
Like, yep, I do. And so
Billy and Chris just left to go to India. Yeah, they're going. Joe's family is going on in India. I think they're traveling to China, or on the way home they're traveling. Elise probably.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that would.
I would imagine so, man.
All of us are like, why wouldn't you postpone it right now?
Oh my God, thank you.
When we're looking at taxes and stuff online with the county's website, why is it always seem 2 years
I would like to sell
Like, my taxes for last year are considered 24.
I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Summers Board of Finance, March 10th, 2026. We have Paul Hart, Bruce Devlin, Joe Tolosano, Kathy Devlin, Mike Parker are present. Tonight is scheduled for the presentation of the various budgets in town. And one of the things that we haven't asked for before, but I would like to ask each of the presenters for tonight, and that is to, at some point in your presentation or at the close, would you please indicate an email address, unless you already have it, and maybe some of us know it, but would you please indicate on the record an email address so that if there are questions from members of the Board of Finance or from the public, they can have a way of contacting Board of Ed, Town Selectmen, Capital Improvements, that sort of thing, okay? That said, town government is scheduled on the agenda first, and you know how dedicated I am to the agenda, so if you would like to begin. This way we keep most of the crowd here until the Board of Education.
Different seats warm. Thank you for having me first. Normally it's the Board of Ed first. A couple things I just wanted to mention. Hi, my name is Tim Keeney, as you know. First selectman. First things I wanted to mention a couple things since we haven't met for several weeks. Just wanted to bring up today. This has nothing to do with the budget, but the Somersville Mill site, the wind development project, is no longer going to happen. I got a call last week from the Department of Housing. Somebody that we've been working with for months, and he basically just said, "Hey, it's too expensive. We can't afford this." It comes out to over $600,000 per apartment unit. It's 52 units, and they just said we can't do this. It's $1.2 million in design fees. We're not building the Taj Mahal. So just to let you know, that's no longer possible. I got a meeting some later this week with people in house that we put together a little ad hoc committee to decide what we want to do. But I think might just take a breather for a couple of months before we decide exactly what we want to do. I just whether we want to put it into the RFP or whatever. Nothing I want to mention was that we now have a new resident troop policeman, state police, on board, Mr. Matthew Zach. He just started last Friday. I'm going to meet him. I'm going to meet with him in my office sometime soon. I'm really looking forward to him. He's an outstanding candidate and going to be a great police officer for the town. He's also a town resident, which will be great.
Yeah.
The third thing I wanted to mention was, again, we have a new fire chief. I'm sure you've heard of him, Chief Ray Stovall. Again, he came on board about 3 weeks ago. He has been with the department, I think, for over 11 years. Yeah, we appointed from within, we elevated from within, which is a great way to go. And he's interviewing candidates to replace the fireman EMT position because he created a vacancy because he was promoted up from that position. The interviews are going to be this Friday. We've got 5 internal candidates who are all interested in the position. So this is very much a very positive thing to do if you can somehow elevate from within. You're appointing people to various positions. Now to the budget. Okay, have slides with it, Brian, or we just pass that? Yeah. Okay. With regards to the town budget, the town has meticulously, with the assistance, of course, and leadership of Brian Wissinger, has meticulously developed through a structured and transparent process the town budget. This process ensures that the budget reflects the town's priorities with careful consideration given to each department's needs. That's where we start off, is what the departments need. Brian tells them what we can afford, and we go from there. The budget was adopted for fiscal year 2026 and 2027 with an increase of $343,910, or a 3.7% increase over last year's budget. The budget outlines the financial plan to maintain current services. I want to stress, we're trying to maintain current services because we think we're doing a good job with the services we're providing. The town they're well received by the town. We want to keep maintaining the services rather than cut personnel and reduce services. Again, while at the same time we're navigating large increases to health insurance and energy costs, which of course we have no influence over whatsoever, but the increases are very significant there. I'll lay out in greater detail to go through what they are. The process, of course, back September through November, we had the directors of the departments come forth with their budgets, what they wanted, and they submitted their own budgets with Brian. The total request for the budget was presented to the Board of Selectmen in December, late December. January, February, but we had budget hearings every week. We met for an hour or 2 hours to hear from the directors as to what they needed for their budgets, and they're there, of course, to answer questions as to why is this increasing or why is this decreasing. And in February, the Board of Selectmen approved the budget, and now, of course, we're presenting it to the Board of Finance. Next slide. Proposed budget, again, is $9,633,708. Last year's budget was $9,289,798. This is an increase of $343,910. Again, a 3.7% increase. Now, what's interesting on this slide is it's a little bar chart there with a budget history over the last 5 years. And I looked at that and looked at the budget increase over the 4-year period from the first year being 2023 through 2027. And over the 4-year period, we have an increase of 12.39%, which comes out to 3.1% annually. So we've got an average increase over the 4-year period of 3.1%. Next slide talks about, it keys the increase to the cost of living rate of inflation. This would we look at the period of about from 2021 to 2025. The rate of inflation over the 4 years is annual rate of inflation is every year 4.33%. So if you compare that to our average increase during the same 4-year period, and average increase in the budget was 3.1%. I think you'll realize that we're being pretty conservative and very specific and not giving easily increases in budgets over the 4-year period. So next slide. How do we get here? The original, again, proposed budget was $9,707,312. Out of that, we made changes, $73,604. The new proposed budget ends up being a total of $9,633,708 for a 3.7% increase. Now, we are very specific, the Board of Selectmen was, as to what we did in looking at the budget presented to us by Brian, we wanted to reduce it first. I think the Board of Finance will identify with that, Brian, when it reduced the budget. So we took $150,000 out of road maintenance. There was $200,000 in the budget for road maintenance. Because we passed a bond recently, we felt that we could get by with the $50,000 for road maintenance versus $150,000. So we're figuring we're saving $150,000 there. We also, because we have a new resident state trooper who is more junior than the one that just left. The one that just left just retired out of that job. That had 20 years in. This one's got about 10 years into the state police. And therefore, we're able to take $50,000 out of the troopers, the budget for the trooper, because of the reduced rate of pay for it. Also, another item, next item is we transferred one FTE, full-time equivalent person, into the rec fund out of the regular budget. So we took $50,000 person, took it out of the general fund and put it into the rec fund, thinking that the rec fund, because it's averaged somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000 a year in the plus, that by the end of the year, that we get by for the first year with paying for it out of the rec fund. So we haven't done that before, of course. We're going to give it a try and see how it goes. My big chief concern there was if we needed monies for maintaining some of our recreational facilities to upgrade, to replace, to improve, would we have enough money for that? If we don't, we'll just go to the capital improvement program, the SIP program, and we see it there. So we're also transferring 2.5 FTEs from the ambulance fund. In other words, the ambulance fund, which is off budget, we're bringing them on budget. That's an increase of $212,819. And the reason we're doing that is because if we don't do anything, the ambulance fund will be bankrupt within about 1.5 years or 2 years. So we felt that would not be appropriate, and therefore we're bringing them onto the budget versus the rec fund where we're taking personal off. Here we're taking 2.5, we're bringing them onto the budget. These are medics coming out of the ambulance fund, going on to the general fund. Brian will give you more details on that if you want later. And then we're reducing our transfer to separation benefits by $35,000 because, we have a special fund which we created with your assistance a couple of years ago for a special separation benefits fund, so that when people left, we have the monies available to pay for the separation benefits. Because we expect fewer people to be separating in the next year, because of course they all love working for the town of Somers, we took $35,000 out of there, thinking we could do that and still have funds available to pay people that are leaving, pay for their benefits. Next slide is the department summary. It lays out basically by department what we're paying, and what the key here, of course, is the percentage increase. General government has increased by 3.06%. Public works by 10.54%. That's primarily mainly because of the increased expenses for public works, which are not only the repair of the machinery that they have, but also their utility bill is huge. That they pay for the town's utility bill, and that's gone up significantly. I'll mention the details of that later as well. That's why we got a 10.54% increase there. Also the salaries. We had, as you know, we had a salary survey that was conducted last year, calendar year, and last year the Board of Finance supported our recommendation that salaries be increased by somewhere around 6% overall. I think, wasn't Brian, 6-7%, something like that. The survey was looking at 6 other towns, comparable towns, And in the interest of equity and in the interest of retaining the people that we have on board, we felt it was appropriate to pay them comparable dollars to comparable to other towns, so they wouldn't get up and leave to go to another town to get $10,000 or $20,000 more money. This doesn't stop people from leaving, of course, but I think it's really great for morale. Indicates we really want to keep people on board and that we like what they're doing, and we want to make it financially equitable.
Hey, Tim, how many people roughly are we talking about that are within the town's budget? Do you know, Brian?
55.
The employees?
Yeah.
Not counting seasonal, I'd say 75.
But what about not counting part-time fire?
Not counting part-time, I think we have 45 full-time, and we've got about 30 part-time between fire, police, library, public works.
So it's around 50 FTE.
Yeah, I think the total is 62 FTEs, I think is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the fire department, we got an increase of 29.68%. Again, the reason there is that, again, we're taking 2.5 people out of the ambulance fund, which is off budget, and putting them on budget. So and the reason there is if we leave them in the ambulance fund, that fund will be bankrupt within a year or so. So that's why there's a big increase there. Police department, again, we got a reduction there of 4.22%. The reason there is primarily we've got a great police administrator, first of all. She always comes in under budget, which is fantastic. And she always comes in with ideas on how she can save money as well. We don't get that from everybody, by the way. But as you know, also, I mentioned the $50,000 that we're taking out of the resident troopers budget package because of the fact that he's a less senior individual. So that's the reason for the minus 4.22%. Benefits got an increase of 3.69%. Library pertains again to salaries, as does the public works. We had people in both those departments that were severely underpaid with regards to what they could be making elsewhere. And so that's why that's an increase of 8.98%. Rec and leisure reduction of 3.33%. Again, primarily because we're taking one of their full-time positions that used to be paid for by the rec fund and that used to be paid for by the general fund and transferring it to the rec fund, which is off budget. Miscellaneous, which again is a reduction of 74.96%, and that's because of the road maintenance shift of funds, $150,000 out of that budget, and the separation fund of $39,000 we're saving there. So again, the total is an overall budget increase of 3.7%. Next is just by department, breaks down police, fire, public works, general government. Next is the categorical summary. As you can see, the salary increase is 10.88%. That reflects primarily the result of the salary survey that we looked at and appropriated last year with the support of the Board of Finance. That didn't go into effect, by the way, until January 1 of this year. And we felt we could pay for it last year because of people that were not. We had an HR position that would fill and more other things. Again, the benefits, 3.69%. Just want to add the healthcare benefit, which again we don't have any control over that. Increased by 11% the cost of healthcare. Public safety is down 6.8%. Public works increase of 17%, primarily due to the utility expenses that are uncontrollable, and the many of the individuals who received pay increases were in the Public Works Department. And we had an example or two of people that left because of the fact that their pay was lower than other towns nearby. And that's pretty much it there. Next is the categorical summary. The thing I want to point out here is if you look at the benefits section and the salary section, which are the two largest pieces of pie here, benefits which are significant, and I keep reminding our employees that Summers benefits package is very generous. And the fact of the matter is if you compare benefits to salary, the benefits are 43% of the salary are what the benefits are. So, if you compare benefits to salary, it's 43% of salaries. So in other words, we're basically, even though we're paying $4,163,000 for salaries, we're also paying $1,789,000 for benefits, which, by the way, I explain to people are not taxable. Therefore, it's not part of your salary. That's definitely a benefit right there. And they're also generous as well when you compare them to other towns. Budget drivers. I've mentioned some of these things before, but I'll just go over them quickly. Employee benefits, we had an increase of 10%. That's primarily based on the fact that our healthcare benefit expense went up 11%. Our energy costs went up, utilities by 20.3%, which is reflected in the Public Works Department budget. Fire protection increased by 57,500, or 24.8%. Primarily because we brought people from, again, the ambulance fund and put them on the general fund. Building maintenance, that's another public works expense, 27.3% increase. Again, 2.5 FTEs that we brought onto the fire department was $213,000. That's what it cost to bring them out of the ambulance fund onto the general fund. And then the 1 FTE decrease from the Rec and Leisure Services general fund onto the rec fund. So we saved $50,000 there. Those are the primary drivers. As you can see, Board of Selectmen made some significant changes, and we did this all in the guise of keeping current services and trying to minimize the budget to the extent possible. Any questions?
Yeah. I don't know if it's too early for you and Brian to project out, and obviously things could happen between now and the end of the fiscal year, but do you have a sense of what you might be able to return at the end of the fiscal year?
That's a good question for Brian.
Yeah, I have started that exercise. I would say right now, conservatively, we're in $7,500,000. Revenues are trending a little on the low side as interest rates go down. I mean, we're not going to make our interest projection for the year. We are we're ramping up collection efforts on taxes to try and drive home a little bit higher on that. Yeah, I'd say conservatively at least on the town side, we're in the 75 to 100,000 range.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't dare open up this can of worms on the ambulance fund, but I will.
I knew you would.
So that used to be our cash cow. Mm-hmm. And what changed?
Purchasing the new ambulance, the cost of the lease on that is really it's really the gap in the funding right now. We have our rates with our surrounding towns and so forth set to meet our operating expenses. If we didn't have that $109,000 a year lease payment, we would basically break even.
Are those agreements up for renewal this?
I'm just waiting on the data now from our billing company to see, because obviously our costs have gone up, and we based our contracts at the time off of actual data from 2023, 2024. So we're now 2 years beyond that. So looking at those, the actuals have grown. Honestly, the number of calls has been higher than we projected as well, which we knew what our break-even point was. So higher means we should collect more than we anticipated as well. So now it's just getting the data and then reaching back out and coming up with what that new figure is and reaching out to those towns.
Yeah, we are going to revisit what we're asking, particularly from Stafford and Ellington. And based on what our expenses are, we're not trying to make money there.
Yeah.
We're just trying to pay for.
There's no chance of that at the moment, right?
No.
Just trying to pay for costs.
Yep.
So
I
we are
appreciate
hemorrhaging
that.
a little on the transportation costs.
The thing that
We're hidden because of the capital cost is really what it is. That is where the bleed is at.
I don't want to rag the puck too much, but just a little. We created the ambulance fund so that it would model and tell us how we were doing with ambulance services.
Yep.
And so to move guys out of there just kind of defeats the purpose of having that fund.
The people that were moved, two of the people that were moved out, one of the full-timers and one of the part-timers that were moved out. The part-timer was just an EMT, so he's more firefighter than paramedic. And the full-timer was originally budgeted as a paramedic. And then when Chief Lenart hired his replacement, the replacement was also not a medic. So while they do respond to some calls, their primary function is on the fire side, which is why we moved them out of the ambulance fund.
I'm not going to say anything further about that.
I appreciate you guys getting it done with Stafford and Ellington, and revisiting it would be great.
Yep.
Well, as a matter of fact, I probably go to lunch every other month with 5 or 6 other selectmen in the area. And one of the topics that Stafford brought up at the last lunch is something I wanted to bring up, but I didn't bring it up, which was looking at emergency medical response for all the towns, and how is the best way to do it going forward. So I think some of the towns are having a real problem with it. They've got private services they got to deal with. They've got a situation where, like Stafford, there's no ALS capacity. And I think the beauty is that Summers probably has the strongest medical response team of any of the 6 towns. So there are maybe some opportunities for us to significantly enhance our
So it's only strongest to the citizens of Summers if the ambulance and the ALS medic is in town.
I understand that. We've made changes to adjust to that in the last year to make sure that we've got people available in town at all times if they're needed.
Yeah, they recently even put a policy in place that if they're on a call already, then they're not going to respond to anything out of town, because then that takes away for in-town coverage as well. So
That's great.
That's good.
they're working a lot of internal policies to make sure that the residents of Summers always come first.
Fair enough.
Any
Excellent.
further questions for Mr. Keeney?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
My email address, by the way, is tkeeney@summersct.gov, G-O-V. Anyone doesn't have it.
Thanks, Tim.
Fly solo. Good evening, members of the Board of Finance. What you have is a binder we prepared for you. It has the presentation that I'll be speaking to first, and the backup to that is our actual budget with the budget lines and series numbers. So time flies, And a year ago, I recall sitting here presenting our budget. And I spoke last year about return on investment and what we're doing as a school district to realize the return on investment that the town is making in the school district. So I'd like to start by just stating once again that in 2024, the middle school was the Connecticut Middle School of the Year. In 2025, the elementary school was the Elementary School of the Year. And also for 2025, the high school was named the School of Distinction in the state of Connecticut, and actually came in third in the running for the title of School of the Year. And I know this board is primarily focused on the numbers, so our numbers percent this year is 3.68. The dollar amount is $31,598,192. That is a $1.1 million increase over last year. So I know you ripped the Band-Aid off there. But if you follow along in our budget presentation, the first two slides just outline our members of the Board of Ed, our school leaders, district administration, and the agenda page outlines how this presentation is laid out. It's about 24 slides. I will not read all of the slides, I'll summarize. But I would like to thank the Board of Ed for their support. I'd like to thank the Budget Subcommittee for their support. And I just want to let this board know that our subcommittee met multiple times to vet the budget before it even went to the full board. So tonight, I'll talk about our mission, vision, what our core tenets are regarding a portrait of the graduate, some of our successes, and several department highlights that should hopefully cover a lot of information for you. So as I move on to slide number 3, we have our vision, our mission, and what we are in pursuit of. And to summarize the statement, we quite frankly are in pursuit of being an exceptional school district. Not satisfied with being a good school district, but our aim is to be one of the best school districts in the state. And I do believe that we are well on our way. Slide 4 highlights our profile of the graduate and our core tenets. We believe in supporting students' growth and development in the following areas: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. Those skills never go out of style. I'll move on to slide 5. And as I mentioned, we do have some return on investment successes. We have measurable outcomes that do indicate that it's just not words when we talk about our journey to being exceptional. We actually have proof of that. We have strong family engagement, and I thank you for your support with our math program. That is going to impact almost 900 students in the town of Somers. And what that does for the teachers, the students, and the families, it provides students with aligned curriculum, aligned to the standards that they will be assessed on, which would be the opportunity for our students to demonstrate what they truly know and can do. If you look at the bar graph, that is the physical fitness assessment over the last 3 years. But I've used that as an example of the improvements that are possible when we focus on the right things at the right time. And for pre-K through 12, that's what we're doing. I'll move on to slide number 6, just to provide you with some updates regarding technology. Our student data privacy process is spot on and in compliance. We now have multi-factor authentication. We have smart boards in the media centers. We've moved our third graders from iPads to Chromebooks, which will be good for 2 reasons. Well, the first is it'll be easier for them to manipulate when they take the state assessments, and also it's a cost savings for us. The Chromebooks are cheaper than iPads. And we also, regarding safety, we have a district-wide alert system for administrators, so every administrator will know if there's a lockdown in any school. Moving on to slide number 7. And this, I'd like to touch on a few things regarding curriculum. So presently we have leadership teams in literacy, mathematics, and AI. Those are best practices, and they are presently functioning at a high level. Now, regarding curriculum, this year we will be purchasing the 3rd edition of the reading program, CKLA reading program, Core Knowledge of Language Arts, and that purchase is a $90,000 purchase. There are other curricular items and professional development fees that come along with supporting the new implementation of the math program, the language arts program, and to perfect our adult practice to positively impact students. Moving on to slide 8, special ed. There have been increases across the board in many cases, but I would like to note that we have 6 viable in-house programs servicing approximately 40 students. These are students where if we didn't have the programs and we didn't have the support services, these students could possibly be outplaced at a higher cost. We'll continue to try to grow those programs to keep more students in district. I'll move on to slide 9. And I just wanted the finance committee to know that we started this process in August. And through this process, I do require each building leader to present a budget, to advocate for their space, for what they need, and then it goes through a vetting process, then it goes to the budget subcommittee, it's further vetted, then it goes to the Board of Ed for their review, and it's been approved to this point. Slide 10 is a visual of where we were last year at $30,476,322, and what the 3.68 represents for this year, the $31,598,192, which is that $1.1 million increase coming up to the 3.68. So this year's ask is $515,000 lower than the ask last year. Last year was $500,000 higher. On slide 11, that shows budget history using that line graph. And I do recall it wasn't here, but it definitely was at the town meeting where the citizens did let me know very clearly that 568, even though it was supported, they were looking for something lower this year, for sure. Slide 12 shows how our budget is broken down into the series. It runs from 1,000 to 9,000. And salaries and benefits equal to just over 80% of our budget. If I move to slide 13, that's a pie chart representation of the previous slide where you can see salaries and benefits, a large part of our budget. Now, I wanted to show you on slide 14 the distribution of changes. We did have some decreases in purchase services. We're hopeful that excess costs will offset special ed transportation. In the supply line, textbook accounts were significantly reduced as a result of purchasing the K-8 math curriculum. The district will redistribute needed funds for the continuation of the reading program, as I mentioned before, at the elementary school, as well as textbook updates in the business department, language arts, math, science, and social studies. And then the 7,000, that decrease there is due to anticipated reductions moving from the iPads to the Chromebooks for the third grade at SES. On slide 15, I just wanted to show this board, as I stated earlier, it's a principal's responsibility to advocate for their teachers, support staff and students for the spaces that they lead. And through that process of advocacy, discussions take place and some things are eliminated from the ask. And I wanted the board to know that from our start point, the reductions equal $346,000. Slide 16 is a representation of the federal grants and state grants that come into the district and town to support our operation. The combined amount on that is $835,406. Without these grants, that would push up our percentage 2.6%. So we're very fortunate to have the support of these grants. Moving to 17, these are our staff counts. The projection hopefully is 266 staff members. We're presently carrying 265. I just wanted to talk about some of the thoughtfulness that goes into positions for us. Last year we reduced the guidance department by one counselor. We had a retirement. We didn't fill it. We wanted to see and understand, could that department function with two counselors, and they're doing an outstanding job. And we paused the culinary program. We're hoping to reestablish that program. I've heard wonderful things about how that program used to run in the past, and that is our aim, to get back to that level of performance. Our students have come to the Board of Ed. There's a strong interest in culinary, so we didn't fill, we paused, and we're hopeful that we can reestablish that program going forward. On slide 18, our contractual obligations, you can see there through the negotiations process for each bargaining group. And we're presently in negotiations with custodians, and we'll be with the nurses as well. On 19, for the board, I wanted you to know how our single, dual, and family employee benefits are broken out. You can see how many families are taking single or dual or family coverage. And on 20, you'll see what the cost shares are. The cost share, employee cost shares range from 19% to 24%. That's a breakdown of how many staff members are in each group and what their cost share is. Moving to 21, it's magnet school, anticipated enrollment and tuition. Some families made the decisions to have their children educated in other schools. If they make that decision, we are responsible for tuition, and that responsibility is about $4,000 per student. So for magnet school tuition, the number is $36,295. Going to slide 22. This is our enrollment, projected enrollment for 26-27. As of March 2nd, our student number is 1,299, and we're projected for 1,323 for next year.
I'm sorry, what was the number for this year?
1,299 as of March, beginning of March. And on slide 23, you'll see the students who are going to BOAG schools, and when students go, it's about $3,900 tuition. I did look at Rockville. We had a large 13 students go to Rockville. I've been on their website. They have a full-fledged FFA, staff of their Future Farmers of America. So these students definitely want that track, and we don't offer that track. So. And just moving to slide 24, I just wanted to provide a representation of what's happening in Tolland County, what the per pupil expenditures are. Something is at $21,729. The Tolland average is $22,809, and you can see the state average is almost $25,000, $24,847. And slide 25 is a different representation of that $31 million, 598, and the 3.68 broken out by the series 1,000, 1,000s to 9,000. And once again, salaries and benefits almost 31%. So in closing, I'm on the last page, willing to entertain questions. I do want this board to know and understand that we go through a lengthy process. The principals come before district leaders. They have to present and advocate for what they need, that their asks are vetted, that the budget subcommittee then further vets that. We persistently look to maximize efficiencies. For example, we didn't just go hire another counselor. We wanted to see, could we sustain and still deliver a high quality service to our students, and we're able to do that. And we did not fill that job last year. We are striving to provide the best learning opportunities for our students, and we will continue to do that and work diligently to be positive partners with the town. So I'm open for any questions you might have.
I would have the same question I asked him. Do you have a projection as to what might return to the town at the end of the year?
I think it depends on our ability to use special ed funding. It depends. If that is not available, then we have to use our operating fund. So that's where we are with that.
Why wouldn't it be available? Did the state not provide it, or?
No, it's with the town, but I can't make that projection right now. So
Maybe we could discuss that offline.
How much are you spending for Chromebooks? Is that, I think I found the number. Maybe Stephanie can confirm it.
So the Chromebooks and any iPads, teacher, student, all of that is all in your equipment, capital outlay equipment. It's in section 734.
Yeah.
So there's a technology line.
It's like 232,000.
Yes, yeah. That's for all of our hardware replacement of, we're on a cycle for replacement hardware. So it would be within that.
I was reading a study done by Stanford University. Interestingly enough, other than the manufacturer of the Chromebooks, there is no, according to this study, there is no data, no study ever been performed that suggested Chromebooks advance the learning process in any way, shape, or form. And the recommendation was, why don't we stop spending that money on Chromebooks and pay our teachers with it, and let them teach. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just thought it was an interesting study from Stanford.
I'm happy to respond with Sam Galloway's perspective on it. Right? So, for our students to engage in the state testing, right, we need to use a device. So previously they were using iPads, which is more expensive. So we did move to the Chromebooks, less expensive, but that doesn't get at your question. So I'm fine with less technology, less cell phones, more interaction, conversation, outside play with peers. So right now we have to use some mode of technology to be able to take the state assessments.
I would say based on what I've seen with the kids in college, nothing is done on paper anymore. Everything is submitted electronically. So I do think there's some benefit in having them be very versed in how to use all the technology before they get there, and so they're not lost souls.
Oh, my grandchildren were well versed in the technology.
Oh,
by the
I'm
time they
sure.
were 5. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Right. But I
Thanks,
couldn't.
I didn't mean to set you on the spot on that. I just was amazed at the study and the recommendation is why don't we spend the money on teacher salaries instead of pieces of electronics. Any further questions of Sam?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
If I
We
might
have a,
email,
yeah,
sure. Sam.Galloway, Galloway, at Summers, K12.CT.
wow.
I know.
Yeah, we know. That's been a conversation.
Also, we, if you do send me questions, we did start an FAQ document on the website. If you do send me questions, we're happy to add it to the FAQ document.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, do you have a comment or two about capital improvements?
I'll try to do this without getting hurt. So I think the biggest, there's a list here, we've got standard truck leases, some work to be done on Piedmont Hall. I guess they need air conditioning. The list is there. I think the biggest note, and I'm going to defer to Dr. Galloway, is we took about maybe $210,000 for heating systems in the elementary school out of the CIP and loaded it into the HVAC project. Through the efforts of Dr. Galloway and Stephanie and the Board of Ed, the HVAC grant was approved this week to the tune of about $7.5 million.
7.2. 7.2. 7.8.
7.8.
7.8, sir.
Ask the math person.
It's based on the project being $15 million, but if so it's about a 54%.
52 and a half.
52 and a half.
I mean,
Let her talk. Long story short, if the project comes in at $10 million, they're going to give us $54 million, $5.4 million. And the town is on the hook for the rest. But that lowered the overall CIP expenditures for this year. And you can see that, it will end up, I think, at the end of the year with about a surplus of $66,000 in next year's budget once all the expenditures are put through. So that's, and I think I know my email address. It's jtalisano@summersct.gov. Does that sound right?
That's correct.
All right. I didn't get hurt.
Well done.
There's still time.
So, any questions? Great, thank you.
The next item is ambulance. Are we dealing with that at the moment?
So I put it in your packets here. It just gives you an idea of what we're projecting for costs and revenues for the year. Again, with the benefits increase as well as the salaries. By moving the two people out, it kind of it reduces it some compared to the current year. However, they do have their contractual increases as well. And the TN dispatch, they changed the way that they assess the towns for the cost. And so Unfortunately, we're locked in for fiscal year 27. However, Chief Stovall has stated that they are going to change the way that they enter calls. Currently, it's any call that is dispatched to the town of Somers, we get they include it in their assessment. So they're changing what gets dispatched, basically. So it will only be emergency calls moving forward instead of every little call that comes in. We're hoping that reduces the number of calls that are dispatched by a few hundred, and drive that cost down a little bit. But that did go up, I want to say about 8% this year. And again, our projected variance is $120,000 loss in that fund for the year. And that could change depending on the intercept agreements that we can come to. And then in August is when we submit for increased rates. So depending on what the state offers for that, we put in $750,000 based on historical data. That if those rates are increased, that number would go up as well.
What about revenue projections?
So the revenue projections are $120,000 less on the ambulance fund. On the town side, or overall budget, we have everything here. We are projecting increases in licenses and permits based on trend data. Building permits are up. There was a proposed $15 increase to the transfer station permit fee. This is the third year of that was adopted by the Board of Selectmen. So after July, that'll get revisited as well in upcoming budgets, but that would set it at $80 per permit starting this year. Again, as you can see, bank interest in fiscal 26, we had projected $600,000. We're not going to meet that number unless a strike of banks and they decide to give us a ton of money, which isn't going to happen. So with fiscal 27, we're proposing that at $400,000, and that's still, in my opinion, quasi-aggressive. Other than that, everything else is kind of status quo on the revenue side.
What about the municipal stabilization grant?
That grant was eliminated by the state for all towns statewide. At this point, it's more of a luxury grant. That's based on their sales tax projections. So they set a fictitious number that they anticipate to get from sales tax. And if they meet that projection, anything above that, then they distribute to the towns. In the past 2 years, they have not met their projections. I don't know if they're setting them too high or people just aren't buying enough. But either way, that grant has practically been eliminated. The last time we received it was in fiscal 24. So we've eliminated it from our projections as well because we don't bank on the state doing much of anything.
How much was it in 24?
$254,000 in fiscal 24.
So they're sitting on $5.7 billion in reserves, and they cut you $250,000.
Yep.
Okay.
And we have reached out through, and they gave us $50,000 or $60,000 more in pilot. We've also reached out through our varying lobbyist groups, CCM, CROG, Sullivan, and Lashane. I've been with the town now for 12 years. In those 12 years, at least in those 12 years, the funds that we received from the Mohegan Pequot grant have not changed at all. It's based on formula, based on the revenues that the casinos bring in. I don't know about anybody here, but I can tell you that the revenues that go through the casinos are definitely a lot more than they were 12 years ago, especially since the legalization of sports gambling. So I know I've personally asked all three groups to push the state to look at the funding and look at what those percentages should be in hopes of that in the future that grant will be increased.
Yeah, that's kind of coincidental, the exact same amount of revenue.
for at least 12 years.
Okay.
It's just a fluke.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very consistent.
Why didn't they go up between 25 and 26 on the pilot?
Because they do it in 2 year. They do 2 year budgets.
Okay.
So
Are you still in the same place in terms of the computation or the correction factor in the mill rate
yes,
based on reval?
yes.
And that number you think is about 6 mils?
So the adjustment was 7.81 mils. Now that the grand list has been signed and approved, at current spending levels, the new mill rate would be 22.4, just 7.81 less. I actually have a sheet on this as well. Based on all of our, I hate to say known, but known revenues, would be $10,937,000. Our total expense budget is $43,281,900, leaving us to need $32,344,000 in property taxes. Our grand list is at $1,306,257, or $1,306,257,000. So our current mill rate, if with adjustments, would be 22.4. To generate the property tax needed, the mill rate would need to be 24.76, or a 2.36 mill increase based on where we sit currently.
Is the, sorry to go back to the pilot thing, that doesn't account for their very heavy use of the ambulance?
No, we do receive receipts for that.
Okay.
It's at the Medicaid level, so it's very low compared to private insurance. It's like $430 a call.
Aren't they a pretty heavy utilizer?
Oh yeah, there's and it's not even remotely close to the value of the building either. Our pilot is worth probably about 40% of what the actual tax would be. Saying if that was even remotely close, if that was 70%, that would be a $2.5 million grant that we'd be receiving. It'd be another $1 million in revenue.
And there's no ability to fight. That's what statutory it is.
They have it set statutorily. They have a formula. Again, their formulas are very generous on their end and not very generous to anyone else's, which is why they end up with almost $6 billion in reserves and everybody else is screaming poor.
Okay. I think that's all I have.
And what's the current mill worth at the moment?
$1,306,257. 257.
Thanks.
So at 2.36 mils, we have about a $3 million gap based on the current mill rate.
Yep.
That we would need to fund.
Okay.
Any further questions for Brian?
No.
Public hearing date is the next matter to be set.
Yep. The
We've
Board of
gotten a slow
Selectmen.
start this year, so is this the furthest date you can push this back?
That is based on the Board of Selectmen on this past Thursday set the referendum schedule. So then when you back from when the Board of Selectmen is looking to host the referendum and town meetings, that is where the public hearing would fall, is on April 21st.
To the members of the Board of Finance, I'm thinking about having a 2-week gap, next meeting, a special meeting in 2 weeks.
That's your regular meeting in 2 weeks on the 24th?
Yeah.
Yep.
To be able to review your materials that you've been given tonight, develop any questions, and be ready to try to deal with those questions on the Is it the 24th?
Yep, 24th. And April 9th, just so you know, April 9th is the last date. If you wanted to meet the April 21st public hearing date, April 9th is the last date to actually approve the budget and move it to public hearing.
Okay. We can make that decision in 2 weeks, right?
What's that?
What further meetings may or may not be necessary between now and April 9th? We need a motion for this.
For the public hearing date, yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Established. Unanimously passed. Anything further on the HVAC project, Joan? We've already suggested that it's Stephanie who ought to be talking about the numbers at the moment.
I agree.
Last item on the agenda is a review of the special approval of the minutes for the special meeting of the Board of Finance on February 3rd.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
This is Joe. This is your time.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It's adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.